Oh, hell yeah. Happy 316. Jim Norton and Sam Roberts getting ready to stomp a mud hole in any of these sorry motherfuckers that want to cross our path. What? Shitty song. This is the national anthem of 316 Day.
Oh, my
where we're
apologies,
knocking
Mr.
back a couple of Steve Weisers. Dropping... What?
Would you want a Steve Weiser?
Oh, I would totally. I don't even drink. I've never had a Weiser.
Would you have a Steve Weiser with Steve Austin?
I'd have a Steve Weiser.
Good for you.
Oh, hell yeah. And then me and him, we take our other beverage of choice, and that's about a six-pack of whoop ass, and open it all over this mealy mouth motherfucker's ass right here, D-bag. I love 316 Day.
Why do you have your hat on? Microphone. Hold on, my sweet. Hold on, sweetie.
And if you can't understand that, I got a little bit of sign language for you.
He's giving me the middle finger.
Yes, he is.
Double middle finger.
It looks like you're wearing a wig.
Yeah, that's why the hat's on.
You have wig hair, but it's your real hair.
It's cold.
Matted.
It's cold in the morning, and I have the hat.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I have wig hair underneath, so you don't want to see my wig hair, so I wear the hat.
I'm going to open a can of whoop peckerania.
What? Whoop peck?
Just changed it for Yuma.
It doesn't work with woodpecker. It's like you're going to beat his dick.
Is that the bottom line, Chip?
Oh, yeah. That is the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
He's a very entertaining guy.
Let me tell you something, Jim Norton.
I didn't mean you.
When you look down at your pager and you see 316 is on it, that means that ass is mine.
I don't have a pager. I have a cellular phone.
Oh.
Smartphone.
Well, if you get a text then.
What did he say pager years ago?
Because, yeah, there was the one great, like, The Rock is, like, in the ring cutting a promo, and his pager goes off.
That's funny.
And he gave the most exaggerated, like, oh, no, look at his pager, because it said 316. Yeah. And then the glass shattered, and Stone Cold comes out, and he's knocking his head around, and he's flipping people off, and he's drinking a beer.
That?
Oh, yeah, hell yeah, he does his head like that. Dropping stunners, elbows.
Did you like the stunner?
It's the best move ever.
Do you think Stone Cold could probably still handle himself in a fucking bar?
What?
He's a big-fisted Texan.
Yeah, he is. Nobody can fuck with Stone Cold.
He's a thick-wristed man.
He's a big guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a guy with thick wrists. Those are the guys that fucking punch your face through a wall.
Yeah, that's punching strength.
Yeah. Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Hey, get in here. What are you? We're going to body slam the mountain.
What? It's 316 Day. What do you mean body slam a mountain?
Hello, sir.
Welcome, Cory.
How are you?
What's happening?
Cory Richards has entered into our studio. He's a mountain climber.
Awkwardly entered.
Yes.
This is happening. Jesus. No, how's it going?
It's good, man. It's really good.
We're celebrating 316.
Oh, wow.
Because
Nice.
it's March 16th, and that's the day we celebrate Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Austin 316 says, I just whooped your ass. Not me to you, but that's just what it
He's
says.
a big wrestling fan.
That sounds like a Winnie the Pooh thing, though. Like Happy Thursday.
Yeah,
You know? It's just like, yeah.
Do you? We're me and him are both afraid of heights, and we watch these urban climber videos.
Oh, yeah.
And people who don't know, Cory climbed Everest. So you're obviously not. But is that the same? The height relativity, it's much higher what you're doing, but does it feel the same as looking down off the ledge of a building, or is it because you're on a mountain for some reason, this slope that doesn't?
It doesn't feel the same. I mean, there are times when you're climbing in places like the Himalaya that you do end up in situations where you have that sort of extreme sense of exposure. But no, I mean, Everest is actually fairly. I mean, there's times where you're like, oh, I really don't want to blow it here. But, you know, it's different. It's not quite like looking off a ledge.
And how long did it take you to actually climb it?
Well, the trip from home to home takes, roughly 8 weeks. But, and then you spend about 20 days of actual climbing time once you're at base camp. And then the final summit push is 5 days.
Wow.
6 days. Yeah.
And how high are you? Because I know you go to the base camp. It's like, what, 11,000 feet?
No, it's like 17,000 feet.
Okay, he said 11 before. I knew he was wrong.
Yeah, well, he's not smart.
No, he's not.
I'm
We're
just
pointing at Derek, by the way.
He isn't.
I said 17. He's like, no, it's 11. Trust me. Liar. So you're 17,000 feet, and that kind of acclimates you to the height?
I mean, you're really not acclimated at all. I mean, you just don't get that. Your body doesn't do that. So over time, it sort of adapts to the best of its ability. But, base camp is high enough that it does start to break down even there.
At what point, like because there's certain times of the year you can go up and certain times you can't. But did you see any of there's bodies littered all over Everest? Have you walked by? Are these markers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely that you see bodies all the time. I mean, it's
Jesus.
Honestly, I think it's a really valuable piece of Himalayan climbing. And I say that, not trying to be callous or cold, but it's a very emphatic reminder that the game that you're playing is for keeps. If you blow it,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the message would be like, you can avoid this by being down on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all of this is very avoidable.
Yes, just don't go to the mountain.
Don't come here.
Right,
Yeah.
don't climb up this mountain because there's all kinds of stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like heat.
They're meant to act like scarecrows for people.
Yeah.
To keep you away, but people walk right by them. Oh yeah, the guy in the green jacket guy or whatever.
Yeah. Dead climbers are human scarecrows.
Yeah.
There was one actually who referred to, and certainly we don't want to take away from these people's, incredible lives that I'm sure they lived, but they do become, pretty iconic fixtures on the mountain. There was a body on the north side that was referred to as Green Boots because he passed away, sadly, trying to sort of find shelter under a rock, under sort of a boulder, and the only thing that would stick out were his legs and he had these bright green boots, and so you kind of knew where you were on the climb if you got lost in a storm.
So the bodies get like frozen.
Yeah.
So that they're like they're not like rotting corpses.
Oh no, there's no rotting.
Wow.
I mean, no, it's mummification almost instantaneously. It's just frozen.
And what's that ice face that you have to climb? There's one where it's straight up ice.
Well, there's two distinct routes. I mean, there's many routes up Everest, but the two ones that are most frequented are, from the south side, the Nepal side, and from the north side, the Tibet side. And on the south side, it's called the Lhotse face, and it's a 4,000-foot ice slope, and that's the one where you see all the big, lines. All the like little lineup. It's crazy.
How many people will be ahead of you? Because you get to the base of this ice slope, and then once you climb up that giant ice face, how far are you from the top?
Well, so Adrian and I actually climb from the north side. We're on a different side of the mountain. We've both been on the Lhotse face. But when you're on that side, you could easily get in a lineup of 300 people. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh my! I was thinking it was like 8 people.
No.
There's hundreds ahead of you.
There's hundreds. And people are moving up the mountain constantly because, and that's why we go to the north side, because it's actually there's way less people, right? And it's actually a much different experience. So on the north side, there's far fewer. On the south side, you've got people that are moving up constantly because really they're worried that maybe there's only one summit day that season. So everybody has to try and get up there.
When you get up to the top, does everyone have to go up? Is it 1, 2, 3, or can 2 or 3 people go up at the same time on the side of that ice face?
No, you're pretty much in a line for sure.
And how long does it take to go 4,000 feet on a piece of ice?
I mean, if you're fast, a couple hours. So.
Sounds terrible. What if you're not terrible? What if you're not terribly coordinated?
Exactly.
I mean, like you.
Yep.
Okay. So you're asking about you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like if I just was like right now, was like, how long do you think it would take me tomorrow to climb the ice?
Yeah, as a slender woman. How long?
I mean, yeah. You wouldn't do it. No, I'm just joking. You'd be fine. You could take you 5 or 6 hours to do that piece of the climb.
But then that slows the whole line down because one guy is taking 5 hours?
Because it goes right back to gym class. Like, all right, everybody, obstacle course.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, everybody behind Sam is in trouble. It's going to be a long day.
You're just tripping up the face. You're like falling up the whole face.
Exactly. You, Adrian, is your partner who you climb with?
Yeah.
I remember.
And our producer's name is Adrian as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, one of the famous stories, I guess, is you climbing up Everest without extra oxygen.
Yeah.
And you making it. How close did Adrian make it?
Okay, so there's some history here. Like, I just want to go back. Adrian and I have known each other for a very long time, and we've talked about this for ages. And we could never actually go to the mountain together until last year. So it was like this this partnership that had happened before it had ever happened. And so last year we both got on the Eddie Bauer team, and that sort of put it out there that we could climb together. And so but he's climbed it 6 times with oxygen.
Right.
So that's a big point to know, and so I was just assuming that he was gonna like crush me the whole time, and he actually did. And then on summit day,
you climbed it?
I never climbed
Never,
it before.
okay.
Yeah, I had tried once before. So now on summit day, we get up, and I had just taken on more fuel, right? And I metabolize fats quite differently than Adrian does. And
What does that mean, taking on fuel?
I mean, I had eaten and I drank more the night before.
What did you eat the night before? You know, when you know summit day is coming, what kind of 6-hour day?
Yeah, what's...
From the time I woke up till the time I went to bed, it was 40 hours.
Okay, so I was off by 34 hours.
Yeah.
My summit day.
It was close, dude. It was close.
What do you eat when you know you got a 40-hour climb?
I mean, you just keep eating. I eat things like ramen, and because it's lots of fluid, lots of readily accessible sugars, salt to help you, to sort of as a catalyst for hydration. Oatmeal that carries a ton of fluid in it as well. Basically, things that you can use as sugars really quickly. And so and then I just drink. I just drink as much as I possibly can, and and a little bit of water along with the whiskey. No, there's no action.
What are you doing if you have to pee? I mean, it sounds crazy, but if you're in the middle of on an ice floe, you just gotta hold it, or just like the astronauts will piss their pants. But you can't do that.
Well, oddly enough, you can imagine your body's working that hard. Processing anything.
No waste.
There's very little waste, actually.
Okay.
So digestion slows way, way down. It's using as much as it can.
Okay.
And especially fluid. Your body needs everything it can get up there. So, we arrived at our high camp, which you don't really sleep at. It's at 8,300 meters or 27,000 feet. And we didn't really... we didn't sleep at all. I just hydrated and ate, and Adrian kind of rested as much as he could. And then the next morning, I had a little bit of fuel on board, and he turned around, 1,000 feet, or I don't know how many vertical feet below the summit, but he turned around several hours below the summit.
Why did he turn around? That's pretty close considering you're almost there.
Super close.
And you could see it, I'm sure.
Oh, you can't, at that time of day you can't, but yes, you are extremely close. And you can... If it were daylight, you could see people. And
why didn't he continue?
Well, he was too cold, first of all. So
How do you know when you're too cold? Like, how do you know, I know I'm too cold versus I'm just kind of freaking out and I'm really, really cold, but I can handle this?
Too cold is when you can no longer use ropes, things like that, when your hands start to become... sort of like blocks of ice in and of themselves. You're not functional. You're foregoing things that you would normally do, like checking in on the radio, because you're just too cold. You don't want to waste the time or the energy. That's a pretty big sign that, oh shit, I need to turn around.
Wow, because when your body is not working. So 1,000, it sounds close, but again, that's X amount of hours, and that really can cost you your life.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Up there, 30 minutes can be a pretty significant amount of time if something starts to go wrong, right? So, if you start to go downhill and you don't listen to it, 30 minutes later, you're going to be in a much, much worse situation, far more dangerous.
Plus 30 up, 30 back down, so
exactly. And so really, Adrian's decision to turn around is what he hates this, because he's like, I don't want your participation award, which I love that line. But he's like, his decision to turn around is really what allowed me to keep going. And I think that's what's kind of special about our partnership.
How so?
Well, had he kept going, then all of a sudden I'm responsible for him when he gets into trouble. And then we're both without oxygen, way too high to be screwing around without oxygen. And then, that's when things start to, if he can no longer use the ropes, then I'm responsible for that. I'm expending more energy. He's now becoming sort of incapacitated. It slows us down the longer we're up there.
So you finished the trip by yourself?
I summited by myself, yeah.
How many people were there other people in your group, or was it just you in the dark?
Just me. I passed a group towards the top, and then I was alone.
How do you pass them? Like, that was like... Do you take your rope and go around? I don't know how that works.
I just flipped them off and made fun of them. No,
316.
It was like traffic in New York. It's fairly mellow terrain at points, and you can just sort of unclip from the rope if you feel confident and walk around.
Okay.
let them know, but a lot of people, man, when they get to that elevation, they are wasted. They are really, really, really not. They're going so slow. It's unbelievable.
And then you summit, you're up there. When you go back down, do you make it seem like it wasn't that great? Like, so that Adrian doesn't feel
yeah,
bad?
Well,
like,
dude, it was cloudy. You didn't miss shit.
Yeah, honestly, I should have probably turned around with you.
Yeah,
exactly.
You were smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were great, dude. Dude, it sucked. I don't even, no.
Stupid. Why did I do that? I don't know.
I just yelled in his face. And was just like, I'm better than you. AB and I, he knows. I mean, he knows what it's like up there. So he was aware of his situation, and
he was smart.
He was smart, and he was also it's like anything. He was the hardest on himself out of anybody. I remember we came back to New York after the climb. And we were actually on Charlie Rose, and Charlie had been interviewing Petraeus right before us. And Petraeus walked out of the interview, and he introduces himself to us, and he looks at Adrian and goes, I really respect what you did. That took a lot of discipline. He didn't give him a consolation prize, but he used a word that was especially coming from David Petraeus, was, really special. And I was like, that is, first of all, just a really beautiful articulation of what Adrian went through. And B, it's really insightful. It's just like, yeah, that does take discipline.
And C, Petraeus should have showed discipline in his emails. But yeah, that's exactly what that was. The ability to go, it's not as important. When you get to the summit, and are you climbing over something, or are you kind of walking up to it on a slope, or do you climb over and go, whew, I'm at the summit? And how big is it?
Summit's small. It's tiny. It's
bigger than this room, or is it?
No, it's much smaller than this room.
Is it?
Yeah. But it's definitely gradual, right? Like you see it coming, and then you're just kind of there, and it's a kind of a surreal experience. You're looking at the summit.
That's it right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm here, so now what?
Yeah, that's kind of it. There it is. There's the summit again from a different...
And then does the realization hit you like, oh no, now I have to climb all the way back down?
Yeah,
like, it's going to take just as long.
Yeah. You're really scared at that point. You're like, oh, I don't want to do this because now I'm really exposed. And that's the thing. Like when you're on the summit, you're halfway.
Right, because so the first half, you're getting fueled by this accomplishment of reaching the summit.
Right.
And then the whole second half is like, now I just have to not die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and that's the thing. That's a really good point. I mean, it sounds really funny, but 80% of mountaineering and alpinism accidents happen on the descent. And the reason being
80%?
80%. Because you go up and you put everything into getting to the top, right? And you're very dedicated to that one goal. And oftentimes, if you're climbing up and over, you have to get to the top. So then you arrive, you've put most of your energy into that, and now you start to disengage. And you're really exhausted, so you're not thinking quite as well. You're at the highest altitude you're going to be at, and you're sort of starting to, and you put yourself on autopilot, which is exactly when things go really, really wrong.
So when you're at the top and you got to climb down,
right?
There's already ropes there, or do you have your own ropes?
There are.
Oh shit! I thought there'd be ropes.
Yeah, I don't know how it works.
You had to bring your own.
I don't know if they have stuff set up for you.
It's funny. Everest. The thing that makes us unique is climbing without oxygen. Honestly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because Everest is climbed a lot. It has been, and so there are ropes literally everywhere on these two routes. And in fact, at times it's tricky to know which rope is the current rope. And there have been times in the past where people, exhausted, whatnot, clip into the wrong rope, put all their weight on it, and it
snaps.
breaks. Yeah, because it's it's old and it's sun bleached and it's
It's crazy the amount of focus that you need to do that. So, all right. So you're and you guys, part of the whole mission was Snapchatting, right? So you guys are Snapchatting all the way as you go up, and you're putting out the 15-second videos, and you got satellite internet and the whole deal.
Yeah.
And then you get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And no more snaps.
Yeah. This was brilliant. This is super smart of me.
Too busy eating instead of fucking powering up your phone.
How about your phone needs fuel?
Yeah. Your phone needs fuel too, Cory.
Yeah.
Adrian was classic.
Although I'll tell you, if you make it all the way up to the top of Mount Everest and the only thing that dies is your phone, it's still an accomplishment.
Sure it is.
Well
Yeah.
played. Well
Yeah.
played. That was good wordplay
Thank
there.
you.
I like
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Thank you.
No, I'm just
awesome.
joking. No, I think you're absolutely right. If you make it up there and that's the only thing that dies, you're doing quite well. I was an idiot, and I was like, I don't need an extra phone battery. You know, like why would I need that? It's only our entire social campaign. It was hysterical. I reach in, I pull the phone out, and I'm supposed to do this Summit Snap, and I just turn it on, and of course it's the spinning wheel of death, and I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing more appropriate than this. I mean,
You're looking around for a plug.
Anybody with a phone.
Does anybody have an outlet, or does anybody have a USB charger?
Yeah.
You know?
So after you allegedly made it to the top, how you're at the top? How long are you? You be up there, and what do you think is the longest anyone's? No one's ever spent the night at the top.
Yeah, actually, somebody has spent
They
the
did.
night.
Is that like one person, or is it a few?
Babu Sherpa. He's no longer
Sherpa.
alive. But
Because of that, or no?
No. He just randomly passed away down near Camp 2. He spent the night on top without oxygen.
Without oxygen, did he have a tent? And
He had a tent.
And people typically never do that.
Never.
How did he know that? And what's the wind up there, even on a casual? I'm sure he picked a mellower night.
Well, you could have days up there, and you do have days where there's not a breath of wind. It's incredible. The day I summited was really windy and actually quite terrible weather.
Are you afraid you're gonna be blown off at all?
Not that day. I was afraid of getting really, really cold. These down suits that we wear. I mean, this is stuff that's been. You can see it in all the pictures. So to describe it to people, it's basically like being in a walking sleeping bag, and the evolution of these things has come a long, long way, right? So when Eddie Bauer started making suits they actually did it for the war. For people in military aircraft, right? So that's sort of the inception of the whole down outfit. And so if you don't have one of these suits, that wind, or if the suit is poorly built, that wind just kind of bites through, and that's where you start to get hypothermia and things like that. So I'm not afraid of getting blown off, but I'm definitely afraid of getting too cold. And so especially because there's, if the suit gets torn, if you start, that stuff happens. And it's really scary.
So this guy that spent the night at the thing, I just want to ask, did he think he slept, or did he just sit there for a few hours, or did he actually?
No, he spent 24 hours on top.
24 hours.
So how much he slept, I don't know. But he, I don't. It was just very much an exercise in seeing what human physiology is capable of.
So let's go back to how did you end up running out of battery on your phone? For something that's so
exactly.
meticulously planned, and you do have to have kind of laser focus about making sure that you're climbing the right parts, and the rope is the right rope, and your equipment is right, and being aware of your suit and everything.
Yep.
So a couple things. I just thought that my battery, I had my phone in my down suit against my skin. I figured that was going to keep it warm enough, and the other thing that died was my heart rate monitor. Right?
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible actually.
Yeah,
all of
you
this.
need
So
that.
I do have I have pictures there. I have a snap that's 20 feet below the summit, but
Sure.
Yeah,
no, we understand.
Yeah. You're like, whatever.
It's the same thing.
But you don't even have a picture for yourself at the top.
No, I do.
Oh, someone took a picture for you?
No. I selfied it.
Okay.
Yeah, just like.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So my phone this year I'm carrying, hopefully a sponsor will give us some external batteries. Sponsors.
Did you have no external batteries?
Adrian was carrying one. I didn't have one.
Oh, but Adrian already went home.
Yeah, he went home.
And he didn't think to hand you that. He probably remembered. He's like, fuck him. He's going to keep going without me.
How great is that? He's unpacking his bag while you're climbing up I wonder if he'll need this.
Yeah, exactly. He was back in the tent it's so warm. He actually, when he turned around, he was already a few hours behind me at that point.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So you're at the top. Now, riddle me this. You have to go back down. How many hours do you have? So like when you're at the top, how many hours do you have to go back? Like, oh fuck, I got before you get to that next camp.
Let's see.
Riddle
it took
me
me
this.
riddle me this. 8 hours up from camp to the summit, and then 3 hours back down.
Okay.
To high camp, and then so that's 11 hours of the 40.
So why can't you sleep in the high camp? Are you? Because I've seen some picture where guys are like you're almost on the side of the mountain, like you're not like on a flat surface.
Well, it's not. Well, A, it's really uncomfortable. It's just on a hillside, and B, it's just really high. And that makes it your body it's really uncomfortable. Whether it's nausea or a headache or. I mean, it feels like, and the way we often describe it is, it feels like a very long, very bad hangover. It's like the worst hangover you've ever had. But then you have to exercise on top of it.
But yeah, the will of people. Like literally, I'm a bad sleeper. I'm always tired, and then I have to get on the elliptical for 15.
I know.
And I'm like, ugh.
It's just like the same thing.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's exactly the
I
same
wasn't going to
thing.
say that,
It
but
is
I was
similar.
hoping Cory would jump in and say yeah.
Yeah.
But like to know your life is on the line, or your fingers, or even less, not even dying, but you could lose the tip of your nose, or your fucking fingers, or your toes because of frostbite. That's a tremendous amount of pressure.
Well, it's pressure, and it's also I think it can be a little haunting at times. Like again, back to that conversation about this is a game for keeps. It's not. It can kind of put you in a tailspin if you think too much about it. If you think about the game you're playing too much, I think it's probably unhealthy.
What happened in 2012 when you tried to climb?
In 2012, when I tried to climb Everest, I had a panic attack.
Is that what was going on?
Wow.
You were thinking too much about it?
And I suffer from a degree of PTSD that was incurred during an avalanche event in 2010, 11 in Pakistan, and it was not, at that point, it wasn't really diagnosed. And to be fair, I just didn't want to be there. I
definitely I would understand why.
Yeah.
How far were you from the top when you had the panic attack?
I was low. I was still low down on the mountain, around 7,000 meters.
Okay.
So.
But I can't believe, that's like...
What's that in feet? Sorry, Sam.
7,000 meters, 24,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're still high.
Yeah.
23, 24.
But that's I guess, I'm always tripped out when you hear about athletes that get these terrible injuries that can then go back and play, because I feel like it would just be in my head like, oh, now I'm vulnerable. I can't believe that after an avalanche incident you would even go back to climbing. I think that would take a lot of people out of the game,
Yeah.
Well, I think it probably does. And certainly it did take me out of the game for quite a while. I mean, and I still struggle with big avalanche slopes and big terrain that's potentially going to kill me.
What happened in that event? You said the avalanche. Were you covered in snow, or did you see it happen?
Yeah, it was partially buried. I saw it coming. Then we got hit, rolled. And it's kind of like being hit by a freight train, and it just gets, the way I've always described it is the monochromatic Maytag, where you're just like you're inside a washing machine. It's incredibly violent. It's incredibly loud. It's very dark, but it's also like, it's like blue, light blue, and then, dark blue, and then it's like dark blue, black,
as you're
dark
being
blue,
covered.
black, as you're being covered, and your body weight's pulling you down, and you have no control, and you're supposed to do things like swim against the current, but the fact is you don't know where the fucking current is coming from. It's so violent, and it is so loud, and you're just getting tossed. And
I'm getting like claustrophobic listening to this. So what happens when it stops?
When it stops, if you're lucky, the way I was, my face was still out of the snow. And the reason that happened, as far as I can tell, it was a very big avalanche, but it wasn't. It came down off a slope that we were in the depot zone, so the deposit zone. So it's flat ground. So it's actually slowing down at that point. And it's pushing us over flat ground. So every single foot that it travels, it's depositing more snow and moving with less, right? So it's essentially becoming a wind blast at that point. And all avalanches carry with them a wind blast. But if it's just air moving in front of it, right? So it's hard to know how much of the avalanche itself we were actually in versus the wind blast and sort of just the continued deposition of snow across flat ground.
But when you get to that phase where you're seeing dark blue, black,
yeah,
that's when you have a serious amount of snow on top of you. So you just got lucky and kind of got tossed upwards.
And we were still tied together. 3 of us were tied together. So, and for whatever reason, that helped. A lot of times that hinders. The other thing that that happened was we were getting thrown over several large crevasses. So getting rolled over these big crevasses, I can't.
Yeah, lucky you didn't fall through. You mean
exactly, and I can't reconcile the event. I don't know why, it'd be so fascinating to watch it as sort of a god's eye view, like to see what actually happened.
Because there's not like a takeaway for you, like, oh, okay, the next time this happens, I'll react like, no, you're out of control.
Yeah, you're complete lack. I mean, it's essentially like you can imagine being on an airplane that starts to go down. You just like, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do.
What do they say? You said swimming against the current when it's happening.
Yeah.
It's hard to breathe just thinking about being cut. Like when you're cut, what's the suggestion or what do they say? Like, okay, it stops, it's black. Because a lot of times I'm sure people are alive under that snow for a little bit. What do they suggest you do to figure out which way is up and where you go? Is it to drip spit?
Yeah, because you don't even know which way is up.
Like, do they say drip saliva and whichever way the saliva goes, go the other way? Or what's
I mean, to be fair, your cognitive ability, sure, you could do that, but the point is, by the time it stops, once you start to feel as though you're slowing down, and if you feel as though you're under the snow, if it's very dark around you, there's a last-minute sort of struggle to get either something up around your mouth, like a hand,
right,
to create some sort of space, right, that's going to hold a reasonable amount of... I mean, that's only a few breaths of air, right? But what it's going to do is it's going to make you more comfortable, and also it's going to make you feel less claustrophobic. But oftentimes snow is packed into your mouth, it's packed into your nose, it's packed everywhere, and and so you try to get that, and then if you see light anywhere, if there's any semblance of recognition of direction, sure, there are stories where people sort of push towards that with a fist, with a foot, with something, and that can end up on the surface, maybe.
But your arms and stuff are probably, if you're laying like flat, it's not like you have a bunch of room to dig with because your arms are packed in snow.
You can't move. I mean, it's like being in concrete, especially heavy snow, like wet snow. When it comes to stop, you have a matter of minutes before that becomes, and you can imagine this, your body heat is going to start melting within reason a little bit of snow around you, but then that moisture is going to freeze. So what it becomes is, an ice tomb. I mean, the longer you have in there, the more concrete it becomes.
Ice. I never thought of the fucking snow packed in your nose and mouth. Oh, that would suck.
Why does anybody climb a mountain?
Yeah, exactly. Jesus Christ.
Like what? You quit high school when you were 14, correct?
Yeah.
And you wanted to do this. You wanted to climb?
I just, I'm a really awkward human. I'm good at being in social situations, but internally I have I have an identity struggle. I have a constant identity crisis. And the thing is that mountains gave me sort of a comfort, because I didn't need to be anything else in the mountains. I was quite good at being in the mountains, and there was, sort of, honestly, and I'm just figuring this stuff out now in my life. I mean, there's a bit of reclusiveness that the mountains allow.
What's your internal struggle? Like you said, you're an awkward human being. Do you not know who you are?
I don't think any of us really know who we are, to be fair. I think we try on different pieces of each other, and we see things that we like in each other, like, I like your humor. I hate your hair. No, I love your hair.
He pointed at Sam.
You know what I mean? Like,
thank God.
But no, I like your humor, and I like the way you present values, and I like, so, and then we adapt these things, and we become sort of a collage of different parts, and that's okay. That's what we do. We're taking that on, and for me, my sort of, I remember when I started photography, I was driving to the airport, and I've told this story before, but I was living in Salzburg, and this my first photography instructor drops me off, and he says, "Cory, remember, never let what you do become who you are." And I really love that statement, and I'm just learning what that means now. Because what we tend to do, what we gravitate towards is some sort of identity statement, like an I am. I am a climber. Right. I am a photographer. I am a National Geographic explorer, like all these things. But the fact is we are not those things. Those are things that we do, or accolades we've sort of amassed over the years. They have nothing to do with identity, and we conflate the two all the time. My true identity is I'm Cory. And I'm a sum of a whole bunch of different parts, and I don't, and that changes on a daily basis. So when I say I have an internal identity struggle, I'm talking about that from a very human perspective. I think maybe I'm just more focused on it at times than other people.
Do you think a lot when you're climbing about that stuff too? Sorry, Sam.
No.
Do you think about I don't know, this or that, or are you just too? Is there a good chance to not think because the only thing you can think of is not falling?
Well, I probably climb to try to not think about everything, but honestly, it gives me just more time to think. And so I tend to ruminate on these concepts, and I like it. I do like it because it's a sort of a place that you can go to where everything is stripped away, right? And so you have to really look at the nature of the human experience at large, and at least I do. I don't know how I'd occupy my time otherwise, but it poses some really amazing questions, like, does any of this matter? Does climbing a mountain matter? No, it really doesn't. It matters only insofar as it's used to tell a story that can help incite social change. And beyond that, the act itself is very self-indulgent.
You should see if you can get to some of those moments on like one of those indoor rock climbing walls.
Yeah.
Because nobody's ever, there's no bodies, there's no
10
avalanches.
Feet and think,
It's just people in tights.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh, this place is great.
Yeah, I've just never been able to wrap my mind, and it's just because I'm a totally different person around like wanting to climb a mountain or swim with a shark or bungee jump or do any of that stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. You don't have to, because you're gathering your social and sort of spiritual or whatever information from other reference points, right? And so not everybody does need to go climb a mountain. I mean, people find that in relationship. People find it with children. I mean, do you have kids?
Yeah, I just had a kid.
Yeah, that's that in and of itself is an experience that lends towards a deeper understanding of things, and you start to question, and so climbing mountains is, I'm not going to lie, I mean it can be it comes from a pretty privileged place, which is why I really use it to look at really my privilege and also what I can do with that.
It's like I would say that climbing, like, it's not surprising that someone who climbs Everest, I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody who's climbed Everest, it has some internal conflict or is a little nutty, because the ability to be able to do that, you can't be thinking completely
rationally
all the time, because it's just if you were thinking 100%, nobody would ever want to do that. So there has to be some way to. There has to be something different going on mentally.
Yeah.
Not even in a bad way.
No,
but to be able to fucking do that, to be able to push yourself to do that, and to be able to stand up there and go, now I got to go. It's just something I can't comprehend.
And that passion for like discovery, whether it's self-discovery or experiential discovery, like just that thing that makes you want to do things that are done by very few people.
Well, I mean, I think if you're awake, ultimately, at the end of every discovery externally, you end up with a choice that, oh shit, well, there's only so much that I can really explore outside of me. And at some point that becomes exhausting and exhaustive, and then you say, well, now I got to look at the stuff that maybe I'm using the external discovery to get away from. And that's really what that's what I think Everest is always, or climbing has always been. It's like, oh, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do this. And then Everest became this thing like, oh, shit. Like, I literally can't run further from all the stuff that I've got to deal with.
Dude, right. I avoid things by jerking off on the computer. you go 30,000 feet in the air. When are you doing it again? You are doing this again?
We're leaving. Yeah, Adrian and I. Thankfully, Bauer is sending us back this spring to get Adrian onto the summit without oxygen, and
you're doing it without oxygen again.
My goal is to do it without oxygen again. I am not putting any pressure on myself. I don't need to do it without oxygen again. I would like to, but
I guess because you did it the once, so it's like that accomplishment is done. It'd be cool to do it again, but you've checked it off your list.
Yeah, I would love to do it again without oxygen, but really the goal here is to put Adrian on top and to Snapchat from there.
Yeah. I mean, here's what you do: maybe less snaps going up.
Yeah,
and save a little of that battery.
Save some juice.
Yeah, save a little of the juice. Yeah.
Wow. So, oh my God, I forget what I was going to ask you. It was something about being on the top of the mountain. I don't remember. It was some childish question about being high up in the air. I'm very tired.
About being high.
Oh, about the ability to do it without oxygen, because my cardio is very bad. Like, people look at me, you probably think I climb too. I really don't. This is just from doing minor gym workouts.
I walked in, I was like, you have been to the same place.
Are you when you work out, are you just an animal who can do like the VersaClimber? Like, that VersaClimber in the gym?
Yeah.
I fucking hate that thing. I could do that for maybe a minute.
Right.
How long can you do that for?
I can do those things for a very, very, very long time. But remember that most people go in, they sit down on the rowing machine, and they go hard, and they think it's super, super difficult. And it is hard when you sit down and you just start rowing as hard as you can.
Sure.
If you sit down and you know your pace and you gently work into it, you can row for hours, and it's the VersaClimber's the same thing.
Wait, no, I can't do the VersaClimber for hours, no matter what pace I go at. I couldn't hold on to it without moving for hours. You could do that for more than a half hour, that thing up and down, even slowly?
Oh, yeah, just but you do it super slowly. And and the other thing is that cardio is not per se the end-all be-all of this kind of climbing. That's not really. There's a lot of evidence that comes down to how we metabolize fats and sugars is really more indicative of how capable we are at endurance sports. Because you can imagine if you're actually metabolizing fats, intramuscular fats specifically, over sugars, you have basically a limitless power source. So it's like running a car, it's like driving a diesel versus driving a, sort of regular gas engine. The diesel is your intramuscular fat, and it can go for days. I mean, you have limitless supplies of this stuff. But it's training your body to want to burn that, to choose to burn that, to be burning that over as much as it can be over glucose.
What was the reaction of your family, especially when you're young and you decide you're not going to go to school anymore and you're going to start kind of adventuring out there?
Well, at the time, I wasn't. That's a really great question. I mean, at the time, I wasn't like. I was just thinking that is a good question.
Yeah, I don't like that he's been told he asks good questions because no one's ever told him that before. That really bothers me.
At the time, it wasn't like I'm going to go be an explorer.
Right.
At the time, it was, fuck you, mom and dad. Like, I know better than everything.
Like Into the Wild almost.
Yeah. Except not almost. Like, that was kind of Christopher McCandless was like my god. I'm gonna go live in a bus in Alaska, and and the end of that story is not something that teenagers tell themselves. I'm gonna go live in a bus in Alaska and die.
Yeah.
It's I'm
what
gonna
a
go.
Jerk too. He could have just gone home. Like
What are you doing?
I mean, he didn't have to live in a van.
Don't eat the burries.
Yeah. I mean, and what a tragic story. I think that's something that happens to our youth, though. When I left, it was not a pretty picture. My parents were like, well, I'd run away from rehab 3 times, and they were like, well, you can't live at home, and that became.
What were you in rehab for?
It was a behavioral rehab, but I mean, a lot of kids in there were addicted to meth, or some of them were. I mean, it was a behavioral drug rehab, but I was not that at that point. I was just a little shit,
right?
And so, I mean, they weren't excited. Both my parents were in education, so to have a 14-year-old be like, I know better than all of you, they were pretty bummed.
Yeah.
You're a fascinating guy. To see what you're promoting, it's Everest No Filter on Snapchat. And Cory and Adrian, they are going to go back up because they want to get Adrian to the top. And I guess Eddie Bauer makes these amazing clothes and keeps you warm, which is very inspirational, by the way, in this shitty weather. I'm actually thinking I'm going to go get some Eddie Bauer pants.
You should.
Yeah.
You should.
Because that's what happens. Everybody's got these like great jackets everywhere, but nobody remembers the climbing pants.
I just want to see everybody walking around in an Eddie Bauer down suit today in New York City. That would be amazing.
And it's Cory Richards on Instagram, Cory Richards on Instagram. And you're a fascinating guy, and hopefully you make it and everything is safe. And you can come back again. It was really interesting, man.
Yeah, I'm psyched to.
We'll be following your Snapchat just to see if
just to
follow
watch
the
when it
snaps.
falls. Yeah, just to hopefully you get to the top and then it doesn't.
Everest no filter. It ends with Everest don't blow it this time, Cory. Yeah.